Let's bring in our panel now. John Spencer is the executive director and co-founder of the Urban Warfare Institute, and Stephen Cook is a senior fellow for Middle East and Africa Studies on the Council on Foreign Relations, also author of the book The End of Ambition: America's Past, Present, and Future in the Middle East. I'm going to start with you, Stephen. Hamas agreeing to release all hostages, living and dead, immediately enter negotiations with a mediator to discuss how to do it. This seems to indicate we might finally be at the end.
Maybe. I think Ruby Chen said it best. That should be some cautious optimism. There's certainly optimism in that they have agreed to release all of the hostages, although they gave this convoluted statement about as field conditions indicate. I think
what does that mean?
I think it means they don't know where everybody is.
Well, in fact, Stephen, one of the leaders of Hamas told Al Jazeera in an interview in the last couple of days that they don't know, in fact, where several of the dead hostages' bodies are. How can that be? These hostages, whether living or dead, are enormous leverage for Hamas.
These Hamas and others have taken hostages and have distributed them through the Gaza Strip. And some of they may know where they are, but they may not be able to get those groups that hold them to give them back. So they may not know where they are. They may be in the process of herding cats in terms of trying to get those bodies back. But I do think that the real hitch here is that Hamas has not committed itself to disarmament. And although it has committed itself to accept the role of technocrats to run the Gaza Strip, it has not given up a political role. And that's very important to the Israelis, that Hamas have no political role in the reconstruction of Gaza going forward. And I think those are going to be two very big issues going forward: disarmament and what role Hamas will play in a day after.
I'm going to get to John in just a second, but Stephen, just to follow up on that answer, what happens? President Trump really wants this. He was issuing ultimatums right up until the moment when Hamas announced late this afternoon, okay, we're going to release the hostages. What happens if Bibi Netanyahu says, we cannot accept, any Hamas presence of any kind in Gaza? And could he derail this deal that President Trump so badly wants and has worked so hard to achieve?
He could. The problem is that the president's being very clever here, and he's jamming Netanyahu. He knows that 75–80% of the Israeli public support a deal, any kind of deal that will bring back all of the hostages. So it'd be politically risky for Netanyahu to defy the president at this point, not just in terms of U.S.-Israel relations, but in terms of Israel domestic politics.
Okay.
So we'll have to wait and see. Netanyahu often has his own game that he's playing, but so far he has not responded to this.
John, there was enormous pressure, not just from President Trump on Hamas, but most notably from all the Arab and Muslim countries, all around in the region, as well as Turkey, other Muslim countries. Huge pressure. And there was also pressure from within Gaza, where there is utter exhaustion from this war.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was the big difference. Like I've posted about the 20-point plan, which, to be clear, Hamas has kind of agreed to 1 point in the 20-point plan, which starts with Gaza Strip will be de-radicalized and terror-free. But you're right, with Qatar, Turkey, Egypt, UAE, all these other nations not only agreeing to the 20-point plan, but there has to be peace. So I personally have a very skeptical optimism about what Hamas has replied with. Even their one paragraph about releasing the hostages, when it starts talking about negotiation and details, we assume they mean in exchange, when it could be, like they've said in the past, like, well, we want more than just the 2,000 life sentence prisoners and the 1,000 others that were taken after October 7th. We want more for this one step, or we want an end to the war, which is, of course, everybody's hopeful because of the president, and the president is hopeful. Getting the hostages home, that would be amazing. But there are 19 other points to this plan which are critical to peace in the region, so this never happens again and doesn't continue. Even the technocratic part that you mentioned, Hamas has said that before. It's kind of called the Hezbollah model, where they give up control, but they keep their weapons and they keep their power. Like, that's not, even Qatar, they're in Egypt and all these other nations who agreed to the plans, that's not what they are saying. They are saying there is no Hamas role in Gaza. It's demilitarized. So I'm very cautiously, skeptically optimistic about this announcement by Hamas, which by the way was released at a certain time just to do this, right? It's like 1 a.m. in Israel. So why aren't they responding? The Hamas does this on purpose to create this momentum.
Yeah, the U.S. has said, though, and we just heard President Trump in that video said everybody will be treated fairly. The U.S. has said it's willing to negotiate over how Hamas disarms, but not whether Hamas disarms. In other words, there might be some room there for, okay, you can hold on to defensive weapons until all the IDF forces withdraw from Gaza, right, John?
So the plan is very comprehensive. It has the International Stabilization Force. It has so many elements of this. Yeah, you're right. And then we debate offensive, defensive weapons. Like they just launched, Hamas launched rockets into Israel 2 days ago. I mean, so who's going to make that decision? But I think this is Hamas trying to survive. But if it gets all the hostages home as step one, that's great. I'm sure.
Right.
And as you said, the president wants that to happen. But it can't be, and then they say, well, we're only going to do this if every other point in this plan is negotiable.
Okay. All right. Quickly, Stephen Cook, do you think Trump sticks with his deadline of 6 p.m. Sunday? If this doesn't look like this is coming together, will, in fact, quote, all hell break loose?
No, I don't think all hell will break loose. I think that we may get hostages back, but I think the rest of the plan will never be implemented.
Oh, let's just hope.
Elizabeth,
Yeah.
I would say don't play with Trump. I think Iran learned that lesson of when the deadline came, what happened to Iran. Hours after the deadline for Iran ended, Israel operations started.
Actually, it was before the deadline. He launched even before the deadline. So there you go. John Spencer, Stephen Cook. Really hope to be talking to you next with some better news. Maybe some good news, finally, coming out of the Middle East. All right, coming up for us.